In 2020, Democrats took full control of Washington.
And it will give Democrats control of the Senate.
Joe Biden has been elected.
But Republicans stood up in the states.
There was no blue wave. Democratic down-ballot disasters carried all the way to the state legislatures.
Now, we're the last line of defense against the Democrats' socialist agenda. The ways we're fighting back are bigger than you think. Welcome to It's Bigger Than You Think, our first episode of RSLC's new podcast about the politics that most impact your daily life. I'm Annie Moore, I'm the host, and with me today is Florida Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez. She's awesome. She's been in politics for a while and just has so much experience, and especially everything that's been going on over the past year now. She's been number 2 in command in the 3rd biggest state in the United States. Governor, just tell me a little bit about your background, about your story. You grew up in Florida, right?
I sure did, yeah. Born and raised in Miami. My parents were from Cuba. They came to this country in 1961, obviously fleeing tyranny and communism and oppression. And their focus really throughout their entire time here in this country was to provide for a better future for me and for my sisters. And they were really big on hard work and determination and education and patriotism. They love this country. My dad has since passed. My mom to this day says how grateful she is to the opportunities that this country gave her. And so for me, all of those things that they embedded in me and sort of made sure that were areas of my attention and my focus have really sort of paved the way for where I am today. And as a mom of 3 kids myself, I am so thankful for the sacrifices that they made. And I can tell you my story sort of meanders and goes through a lot of twists and turns. Never would have told you I'd be sitting in this chair in elected office, and never had that as a life goal. It just sort of happened. A lot of the experiences I've had to date have just sort of happened. I'm a woman of faith, so I do believe that it was God's plan for my life. But I'll tell you, I studied political science. I started working as a legislative aide. Went to work for a major hospital in Miami-Dade County, Jackson Memorial Hospital, heading up their government affairs. Spent quite a bit of time there learning healthcare policy and how that intersects with politics, and a lot more than one would think. And then I got this crazy idea to run for the Florida House. There was an open seat. It just seemed like an opportunity that I wanted to pursue, and I did. And I was thankful to the voters for electing me. We have term limits here in Florida, so I spent 8 years in the Florida House, the last 2 as the Speaker Pro Tem. Through every position that I held in the Florida House, it was a really unique opportunity to sort of set the stage for where I'm at today. Again, I was 8 years, loved my time in the House, was really looking forward to taking a break from politics. I had contemplated running for the state Senate in 2 years from that time, of which I would have been term limited. So I was going to take a 2-year hiatus, see how all that went. My family was looking forward to getting me back full time, especially my husband. But, I got a call in the summer from a certain congressman at the time, seeing if I was interested in running on the ticket as his running mate. Really wasn't sure that it was the right time for me. Didn't really have a lot of interest in being lieutenant governor at that point. But as I thought about it, as I talked about it with my family, as I prayed about it, eventually I said yes.
Jeanette is smart. She's principled. She's been an extremely effective legislator. She's a mother of 3, great career, and I'm just so impressed with all that you've done, and I know you've already brought great energy to the ticket, so thank you for coming aboard, and let's get it done.
I always tease. I always say it took a little arm twisting from some friends. It's really been a privilege of a lifetime to be able to serve as lieutenant governor of the 3rd largest state. I really do feel a tremendous responsibility to do what's right for our state, and I think the pandemic has put a glaring light on the importance of leadership. And so we're able to look at COVID-19 through the rearview mirror. I think Floridians are going to be glad that they elected Ron DeSantis and Jeanette Nunez.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the numbers, and Florida's economy is thriving. People are moving there by the hundreds. They're fleeing these blue states. Florida's a place to go. You guys don't have a state income tax, right?
Correct. Yes.
You don't have a state income tax. You guys are open. So that is something that I kind of wanted to ask you about is Florida's COVID-19 response. You guys were one of the first states to open. That was a really risky call. It could have gone really well, or it could have gone really bad. Now we see that it went really well, but what was kind of the thought process there, and what made you make that decision?
I was actually honored to chair the governor's economic recovery reopen Florida task force. And so what we talked about, if you recall in the early days of the pandemic, those 15 days to slow the spread was really about saving our healthcare system, providing the healthcare heroes that work day in and day out with the necessary tools. And so, as we saw this pandemic grow and mushroom into something that was really just a scale that I don't think anyone was truly prepared for, we recognized that we had to take precautions. We had to obviously care for those most vulnerable. And so every step of the way, the governor has been adamant that our focus is going to be on the senior population.
A group of seniors vaccinated in Central Florida moments after Governor DeSantis broke with CDC recommendations by announcing Florida's elderly will be the next in line for the COVID-19 vaccine.
We knew early on they were the ones that would suffer the most severe symptoms, the hospitalizations, the ICUs, the ventilators, and unfortunately the fatalities. So we did everything we could to protect those individuals, making sometimes very difficult and painful decisions like not allowing visitors to go into nursing homes because we knew they could potentially bring in the virus and it would propagate in a manner that would just run through those facilities and clearly have a negative impact. So we made difficult decisions. We protected those most vulnerable, but we also recognized that this crisis was a dual crisis, right? A global health pandemic, but then also an economic crisis. Florida, like almost every other state in the union, saw those unemployment numbers spike in a manner that was just really uncontrollable. And so what the governor said early on, and I stood by him 110%, that every job is essential. Government should not be in the business of telling you that your job is deemed non-essential, but your neighbors is essential. And so we started from a place where everybody's job, everybody's ability to provide for their family, put food on the table, and to be able to open up their business was essential. So we made some difficult decisions at the beginning, but we realized that a lockdown in perpetuity was not going to be the answer. We were not going to single-handedly be responsible for putting people's businesses at risk, putting people's lives at risk. And so we took the precautions we needed to take. We allowed for businesses to make the difficult decisions. We provided resources, everything from PPE to testing. And so we trusted Floridians to make the right decisions, and we trusted Floridians to keep each other safe. And so what you've seen is an economic recovery like no other. Our projections, our revenues are actually exceeding projections every month. Our unemployment numbers have dropped precipitously. And I'm really proud that Florida is viewed in the rest of the country as the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yeah, I mean, we love to see it. Florida's obviously thriving, and it's no secret that that is due to Republican leadership in the state. So how do you feel like Florida's done in comparison to some of the other states? Like, I mean, at the very beginning, Cuomo, the governor of New York, he got an Emmy, right? And like the media were singing his praises. Florida was getting slammed by the media, just like totally ridiculous. And now we're looking at, it's not even apples to apples. It's like apples and like cucumbers. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. The hypocrisy from the media every step of the way has just been something so obscene. And so while we're here, of course, protecting our elderly, we're making sure that hospitals aren't sending back COVID positive patients to nursing homes to, again, propagate the spread of COVID-19. We set aside COVID positive only nursing homes so that they would have a place to go. Again, alleviate the hospital burden, but also make sure we're taking care of those seniors that were on the mend and we're going to be able to recover from COVID-19, but not allow them to further the spread in those facilities that were so at risk. And so what you've seen is an incredible drop, not only in our case counts, but in our mortality counts. So, New York City, obviously hiding numbers, sending individuals to their death, allowing this virus to spread uncontrollably. Our mortality rates are significantly lower than other states, even though we're the third largest state, even even though our senior population is at the top. And so we're really proud of those numbers. But again, it all hinges upon leadership. It all hinges upon being willing to take those difficult decisions outside of the realm of hysteria. And I'll give you a perfect example. Our schools in Florida have been open since this school year. In March, of course, everyone shut down. All of those things happened. We do believe that when you look back at this pandemic, that will be the biggest public health blunder that occurred, shutting down schools. The evidence shows, and of course, people only like to talk about data and science and evidence when it's convenient to their narrative. But the evidence shows that schools are not big COVID spreader locations.
The new CDC report says it's safe to reopen schools after months of COVID closures.
And so what you've had is really a whole group of students in many states that will be out of school, in-person school, for possibly up to 2 years. And you have a generation of students that will never catch up. This is so important. Our students are our future. And so when you have them outside of the classroom, when you have all of this discussion about how, just the other day I saw the LA County Teachers Union just saying why putting kids back in school is racist. And it's just obscene. It's really, really tragic. There's no need for our kids to be out of school. We provided options for those parents that for whatever reason felt it wasn't safe or had particular issues at home. And so we recognize some parents perhaps didn't want their schools to be back, but that was going to be on them. That's their choice, not ours. And so the governor was adamant, schools will be open, kids will be able to play sports. The damage that's been done, forget for a second the educational gaps that are going to exist, but the damage that's been done to their social interaction, their mental health, we've seen suicide rates increase, mental health issues, the interaction, the ability of students to earn scholarships. The governor is proud that he played baseball in college. And so he understood that is an opportunity, that's a ticket sometimes of a lifetime. And so why are we going to preclude our students from participating in those sports? We've shown that you can have it done and you can do it safely. And these kids are going to have the rest of their lives, their future. And really that decision, I think, is going to be key.
Yeah, absolutely. We're coming up on a year that in some places kids haven't been in school.
I'm a mom. My older two are in the university. My youngest just started high school, and I could not wait for the day to get him back in the classroom in front of a teacher. It's a totally different experience. And I'll tell you, it will be a big tragedy when we look back and see what's happened to really a generation of students that were impacted by this.
You're obviously super badass Republican woman who is helping run the show down in Florida. What has it kind of been like to be Florida's first Hispanic woman lieutenant governor?
Sure, that obviously is something that I get asked a lot, and I'll tell you, it's a big privilege. It's a big responsibility too, because there are a whole host of young women, young Hispanics that sort of look and say, "Wow, she was able to become the state's first Hispanic female lieutenant governor," and I wear that of course as a badge of honor. But I also tell people, make sure that whatever you do, and whatever category, whatever industry you want to make a name for yourself in, do it with passion, do it with pride. For me, I'm an American first. I love this country. Like I said, it is there is no greater place on earth. And that's why I'm so passionate about pushing forward on our agenda. You mentioned it in terms of, the constitutional liberties that we have. A global pandemic does not have the right, politicians do not have the right to trample on our liberties because of a situation like this. And so we're really, really attuned to that in our administration. Given my background, my parents' story, it's something that weighs heavily on me. And I want to make sure that, I not only honor their legacy, but that I provide an inspiration to a community. And I was born and raised in Miami. Obviously, there's a large Hispanic population there. And so they feel pride that I'm in the role I'm at. And I want to make sure that I always give them reason to feel pride.
Yeah, I love that. How do you think that this has kind of impacted your leadership style and the way that you relate to your community?
It really gives a unique perspective. So, my parents' story is something that a lot of people in my community share from different angles. And it really gives you a deep-seated appreciation. And it really shakes you to your core when you hear some of the horrors of the radical left and what they are talking about in terms of socialism and in terms of some of these very radical positions, this cancel culture, all of these things that they're talking about and they glorify to our youth. My vision is to really combat that with real life evidence, with real examples of why positions of the radical left are so dangerous. We take this country for granted. I always tell, my older two, and anytime I speak to young adults, I say, yeah, I consider you all to be the generation of instant gratification, because you don't understand what it is to have to work hard for something. Even when you were little, you would get programs on demand. And, I say this story, of course, it dates me, about how I used to have to go to the library and look through the card catalog to do a research paper. Now all you have to do is, type a few keys and you've got volumes of information at your fingertips. And so, what my parents went through, how they had to work hard, how they had to, really sacrifice. I think it really allows for individuals like me and the role that I'm in to share that perspective, to share it in a way that opens people's eyes. Of course, Ronald Reagan said we're only one generation away from losing this wonderful country, and where would we go? And I talk about that to my kids, and I sort of say it, and I don't know that they really understand the magnitude of the situation, but indeed, where would we go if we lose the special place that is our home here in this great country? And so that's something that I'm really passionate about. I always want to make sure that young adults, even young kids, I feel like they're being indoctrinated at some points throughout our K through 12 system in our universities. There is no longer freedom of thought in our universities. If you are a conservative, you will be shamed, you will be silenced, you will be persecuted, really, and impacted negatively. So that's something that's maybe a topic for another day, but I really do, that weighs heavily on me, and it sort of keeps me up at night thinking of the direction that we're going in this country. And we need voices, loud voices, as equally as loud as the other side, to talk about the realities of these radical leftist policies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what is your favorite thing about Florida?
Oh my goodness, it has to be our beautiful beaches, our climate. I don't particularly like cold weather, so whenever I go up to DC or anywhere else, even Tallahassee gets a little cold, but whenever I head up to somewhere that's cold weather, I love it for a few days, but there's nothing like coming back to Florida. From the Florida Keys to the Panhandle, we have such beautiful topography. Our beaches are amazing, our parks, and I really do believe that Florida is the most beautiful state in the country. Of course, I'm biased.
I do have a confession. I've only been to Florida once.
What?
Wow.
Where? Which part?
I went to Destin for spring break with my sorority.
Oh, not a bad location. Beautiful there as well. Yeah, we just have so much to offer, theme parks, our beaches, our parks, just a lot of great stuff in Florida.
So this is the last question I have for you. What's one piece of advice that you wish you'd known when you first decided to run for office?
Wow, it's been a long time, but here's what I'll tell you. Politics is a contact sport. It's not for the faint at heart. It's not for the thin-skinned. I've developed over the years some pretty thick skin. I wish I would have known back then how quickly I needed to develop it in order to just ignore what I call the keyboard cowboys and the horrible things that people like to say about me on Twitter and whatnot. I usually find out, I have a rule. I don't read any comments on any of the social media outlets. So, but my kids do like to inform me when I am being quote unquote roasted on Twitter. So they're like, oh my goodness, what'd you do today? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, they're saying this. So, I just wish, I wish for a second we would really practice what we preach in terms of civility. A lot of people talk about, bipartisanship and civility and tolerance, but it's only when it's convenient for you.
Yeah, I'm sure that's also changed too, because with the evolution of social media, everything.
Oh, absolutely. Even from when I first ran, I'll tell you, when I first ran in 2010, the focus of our campaign really didn't have a lot on the digital front. And then by the time I ran my last campaign, we had flipped almost the investments in digital versus, mailers or whatnot. So yeah, for sure, social media is a blessing and a curse. It can provide a great outlet to communicate with voters and individuals, but it's become more of just a bashing and airing your grievance rather than real civilized, thoughtful debate.
I get flamed on, I have a TikTok. I have like 10,000-ish followers on, and I talk about politics somewhat. The things that people will say to you on the internet just blows my mind. I'm like, you wouldn't say that to my face. Why would you say it on the
Exactly. That's why I call them keyboard cowboys. They'll be very brave behind the screen of a computer, but I don't think they'd ever dare to say that to someone, face to face.
Yeah, probably not. Just want to thank you so much for coming on here and just sharing some of your thoughts and your experiences. Love that you were able to do this, and want to thank all of the people that are watching this because, this is our first episode and we're just so excited to be talking.
I'm honored to be the inaugural.
Yes, I am so pumped.